Ante, wapastem tsikasun. Thanks for joining me today. So today, as part of our the videos that we put together on maskiki on medicines, I'm going to be showing you today how to make a medicine infusion, a heat infusion, using some of the herbs, one of the plants that we've already picked, and some of the other stuff we've harvested. And I'm going to show you how to make salve, make your own salve at home with some of the different plants and herbs and medicines we've harvested. Because we can, common salves used for cuts and stuff like that, we can make salve out of the waskatamo, the giant lily pad that we picked, or salve out of the poplar buds for arthritis and such. But today I'm going to be taking the devil's club that we had picked, and we have instructional video on that to show you what that plant is. But with that devil's club, what I've done is I've taken the outer bark that we scraped off. You'll see that in one of the videos we did. We took that bark and we scraped it off, and I let it dry completely. And then I put it in my my coffee grinder and ground it completely into a powder. So I've got the powdered devil's club here. So I've taken my kogamna gasimagak, or my devil's club, and when I powdered it, I measured out, and this is about 4 tablespoons. So I've got about 4 tablespoons of completely powdered kogamna gasimagak, or my devil's club, to make my salve. Now, when I'm making the salve, there are 2 things besides our medicine that we use. In order to make it into a salve, we need some kind of oil. And with traditionally, when we make salve, we would use the oils that we've harvested from before. And of course, one of the oils, the natural oils that we harvest, is from muskwa. And we've got muskwapimi, or our bear grease here. So I've rendered the fat, and I've gotten the bear grease from the musum muskwa that we had harvested. The other thing is from amu, the bee. We've got wax. So these are 2 main ingredients that we need in order to make a salve. So like an ointment or a salve, we need beeswax, which is going to thicken and make it sort of into a paste, as well as our oil. In this case, muscapine, which is going to mix together to make that paste. Now, of course, we can't use water, because if we use water, the beeswax isn't going to infuse into water. It's just going to separate and not infuse together, or not. We call it making an emulsion with them. So they're not going to become an emulsion and mix together. So these are our binders here, and of course our Kogamna Gasimaga, our devil's club, is our medicine. So our medicine is going to go with these 2 to make our salve that we use. And with the devil's club salve, we use it for controlling pain, getting rid of pain, because it's an anti-inflammatory along with an analgesic cream, meaning it takes away pain. So elders commonly use this for stuff like arthritis, or muscles that were aching, and inflamed muscles, back, anything to do with the bones and the muscles where we're getting pain and inflammation. They would use this salve to either take that away, or to ease the pain of stuff like arthritis. So the first thing we need to do is we need to heat up our oil. So because with the musclepemy, you'll see that it's kind of separated, and we want to heat that because, and I'm just going to give this a shake so it's perfectly mixed up. And we want to infuse our medicine into there, so we need to do that with heat. So we're going to take the musclepemy, or the bear grease, and I'm going to use 3 cups of my bear grease. So I've got 2 cups there. I'm just going to pour that into my pot here. So I've got 2 cups, and I'm going to measure out another 1 cup. So that's 3 cups. And there's just a bit left in there, so I'm just going to use just a barely over 1 cup, because I don't want to waste that last little bit. And what I'm going to do is I want to get this bear grease almost boiling. So like just like hot oil for like when you're making fries or something like that. But I don't want to boil it too long, so I'm just going to thin it out and let it warm up and come to a boil. As soon as I start to see my bear grease, because right now it's a whitish color, once it starts to heat, it's going to go completely clear. Once I see it clear, that's when I'm going to pour in my 4 tablespoons of the Devil's Club. And I can see it already starting to clear. While I'm waiting for that, when we're making the salve, with our grease, our oil, and our beeswax, we need to make sure that we mix them properly, because if we put too much beeswax in there, it's just going to go just as solid as the beeswax is. And I use natural beeswax right from the beehive. So rather than the processed wax, you want the natural beeswax, because of course we also believe that there's healing properties inside natural beeswax itself, so it's good to use that as well. So my oil is almost clear, pretty much clear now, so I'm going to pour in my Devil's Club, and I'm going to let that heat and infuse into my oil. I'm just going to give it a stir to make sure it's mixed in there, because I've got a dry powder going into oil. So I want to mix it up, get it mixed around, and I'm going to let that come to a boil. As soon as it comes to a boil, I'm going to turn the heat down and just let it simmer only for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most. I let it go on the heat too long, I'm going to burn the oil, and the oil will start to turn a dark, burnt black color. So I don't want to do that. I'm just wanting to infuse my herb into my oil with through heat infusion. So as the Devil's Club shavings heat up, they're going to start to release their medicines and all of their properties into the oil and mix with that oil. So I'm just going to let those, it's almost coming to a boil. So again, I don't want it to boil for too long. Otherwise, like I said, I'm going to burn it. So as soon as I see it boiling, I'm going to turn it down and just let it simmer. So I can see it just starting to boil, and I see it starting to froth or foam. So that tells me the proteins are coming out of the oil. So that's about as far as I want to take it with the boiling. I'm going to take it off the heat while I bring the heat right down to a simmer. I don't want it to boil any more than it already has. So I'm just putting it back on the heat. I'm about quarter heat now, just to simmer. Just to let that medicine infuse into the oil. So I'm going to let that simmer for about 5 minutes. So I've finished heating up and letting my my devil's club infuse into my muscopine, my bear grease, and I've let them simmer for about little over 5 minutes now. But now it's getting to the point where if I have it on the heat any longer, it's going to start to burn. So it's done that whole infusion now. It's heated up the herb into the oil, and now I'm going to just let that cool a little bit. While I'm letting that cool a little bit, I'm going to need to prepare my beeswax. So when we're making a salve using the beeswax and oil, we always mix about 3 to 1. So 3 parts oil, 1 part beeswax. If we go any more than 1 part 3 to 1 or 1 part beeswax, then it's going to be really hard and it's not going to have that paste or that sort of a salve or ointment sort of texture to it. So 3 to 1 when I'm mixing using the beeswax. So I've put 3 cups of oil, so that means I'm going to use 1 cup of beeswax. So I want to try and melt about 1 cup of this solidified beeswax. And for that, I'm going to just take out the large pieces of the beeswax and use just because it makes it easier to measure. Now you can just take the time to grind it all up before you melt it. But I'm going to just roughly mix out about 1 cup of beeswax. So I'm going to go a bit over, probably to about 1.5 cups, because it is solidified and it is chunky, and it's going to give me less when I do melt it. So I've got about 1.5 cups of kind of the chunky beeswax, and I'm going to put that into my pot. Just use my spoon to scoop all of the beeswax out. And then I'm going to let that completely melt into a liquid. Because we know once we heat up wax, it turns into a liquid from a solid. So I'm going to put that to begin to liquefy. And it doesn't take very long. While I'm doing that, I need to strain out my oil to get all of those particles out. Otherwise I'm going to have a really rough, gritty salve. So I'm going to strain it through cheesecloth. So you can pick up cheesecloth anywhere in your local shopping store or anywhere. And what I've taken is I put a steel bowl because it is going to be hot still. And I've just taped it around so that I'm not having to hold it or see my cheesecloth fall in and fall apart and all that. So I've just taped it with just regular electrical tape, just to hold it secure. So I'm just going to pour this now into my cheesecloth just to strain it out. So I'll have a nice clear oil. And you'll see all of that solidified devil's club still on there. My wax is nearly completely dissolved into a liquid now. So I'm just going to take off my tape here now and take out my cheesecloth so I can get my clear liquid. Be very careful not to let that hardened stuff go back into there. So while I've got that out now, just clear this out of the way. Again, remember, I've got to be careful because this is all really hot right now, hot oil, and we do not want to get a burn from a hot oil. Okay, so I'm going to very carefully, maybe using a spoon, I'm going to take this off because it's already liquefied that wax, but I just want to try and squeeze as much of this oil and medicine out of there as I can. I'm just giving it a quick squeeze with the spoon because I don't want to really waste anything. Okay, so I've got just about all of that hard material out of there. So now I can pour this into my container, and I did splash a little bit on there, so I'm going to give my container away because this is where the final mixing will happen. So I'm just going to put this under here because it's going to be hot oil and hot wax. So my wax is completely liquefied, and again I've got about 1 cup of melted wax in there. So now I'm going to mix the two together, and I want to mix them while they're both hot, because if they're not both hot, then it's not going to completely mix together. So I'll just pour my oil in completely, get my hot wax while they're both still hot, pour that in, and then I'm going to have to completely stir them together so that the wax and the oil completely mix before they cool. And I want to let these naturally cool by themselves. I don't want to stick them in a fridge or anything because it'll cool too fast, and you get a chance of the oil and the wax separating. And as it's cooling, you can even start to feel it thicken and get that sort of a salve or a pasty texture. And I could already feel it with just with the spoon. I could feel it thickening in there. So I just want to keep stirring it just so there's no chance of separating while it's cooling. And I'll continue to let that cool. While that's cooling, start my cleanup. Again, I want to let it completely cool without continuing to stir it a little. Now I'll continue to let that cool off because it's probably going to take about 30 minutes for it to cool off, but once it cools off, we'll show you the final product. Alright, so we've let our salve cool, and we can see that the oil and the wax have completely mixed together to harden. and didn't go completely hard. It went just hard enough to be like a salve or a paste. You see, it's thick enough to use as a salve to put on our aching joints or our muscles or wherever we're having pain, where that Devil's Club will help deal with that pain and take away any inflammation. So that is the process of a herbal infused salve. Samaga.